Let's see. Make sure it goes. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the True North podcast. I'm your host, Scott, and tonight we have a very special guest. I mean, a special guest. I look up to him because he reminds me of where I was and where I want to become. His name is Pete Johnson, owner of Tatuaje Cigars. Good evening, Pete. How you doing?
Good, Scott. How you doing? It's a little bit wet outside here in Miami, but I'm at least dry, so we're good.
It's all good, man. Hey, weather happens and things happen. So I just got to say a little bit, what is your background? Where did you come from before entering the cigar world? A little bit about yourself.
I was a musician. I grew up in a small town in Maine called Gardner, Maine. Um, Left Maine when I was 18 to go to Hollywood to do music. And I kind of did that for about 5 years in LA. And ultimately, it was actually a shorter period than that. Ultimately, I found I really enjoyed the cigar business because I started going into cigar stores and smoking cigars. And ultimately, my band that I was with, we broke up. We're still best friends to this day, but we broke up and we were no longer playing music together. And I needed a job, and I found my way into a cigar store. So I went from grinding out on the Sunset Strip to being behind a retail counter selling cigars, and I fell in love with the industry. So I never looked back. Honestly, I still have my instruments. I still play when no one's around, but I don't get up on stage anymore and rock out. It's part of my past life. I don't miss it really. I miss the camaraderie of hanging out with the bandmates and playing music, but I don't think I really miss lugging gear around and
Hmm.
getting up on stage in front of a lot of people.
No, I get that. That's fascinating. I mean, so you don't really miss it?
Yeah, I probably miss getting together with the guys and jamming because we used to practice every night. So it was one of those things that was like a ritual for us. It was part of our life. And when we were playing out a lot of clubs, it was obviously a lot of work, but lugging around gear and setting up, stage equipment, I don't totally miss. Uh, you know, the older I got, the more introverted I became.
Okay. I see it. Now I got to ask, what instrument did you play?
I was a bass guitar player.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, bass guitar, and backing vocals. Obviously,
Right.
you
Okay.
you hear my voice now, but like when I was younger, I was able to hit all the high notes. I was like the guy that hit all the high full voice harmonies.
Oh, not kind of like Axel, how he hits the high ones.
Yeah, but he was hitting. Axel always does falsetto.
Okay.
Yeah, but then again, Axel's got a range of a voice that's pretty impressive. So I couldn't hit his range. So
It's always fascinating because being in California on Sunset Strip, that's a story of its own right there. And to be able to say you were on that strip and what it was like for you, because was it always easy for you being on the strip going into the cigar industry?
no, on the working in the cigar industry became like a place of peace for me because it was way easier to work behind a counter at a retail shop than trying to sell a ticket to a show to the Roxy or the Whiskey, um, or the Troubadour. The struggle of being in a band in the early '90s, living in a one-bedroom apartment with five guys, um, is not so glamorous. It's a lot of fun. We did a lot of stupid shit, but it's not very glamorous. And you end up, I was really skinny back then because I had no money to eat. but we had a great time. I mean, we still reminisce about our past and the fun we had, but I don't miss it in that sense at all.
Right on, right on. Now, with that being said and all that, how did you become, how did you get the name Tatuaje?
Well, Tatuaje was obviously I didn't know how to pronounce Tatuaje in Spanish when I when I had an idea of what I was going to do for a brand name. I had a nickname in the industry because I had been in the industry for 10 years before I started my brand.
Okay.
And I had a nickname in the industry, which was Tattoo Pete, because back then I was like the only guy on the trade show floor that had tattoos. You wouldn't walk onto the trade show floor in the early 90s and see a lot of people showing off tattoos, but I was the one kid. Back then I was 23 years old. I was, people would see me coming down the aisles in the trade show and try to figure out what the heck this kid with tattoos knew anything about cigars. So eventually, a few key people in the industry gave me the nickname Tattoo Pete. And fast forward 10 years to 2003, when I was trying to search for a brand name,
Mm-hmm.
um, I knew I needed to make it personal. And what was the most personal thing to me was my nickname, but I didn't want to call it Tattoo. I wanted to
All right.
call it, Spanish for it. It seemed like it needed more of a Spanish name to it. So I asked someone that spoke Spanish. I said, "How do you say the word tattoo in Spanish?" They're like, "Tatuaje." I actually had to have them spell it for me because I couldn't pronounce it back then. I had to quickly learn it, and then on top of that, like there wasn't like Google Translate back then.
Yeah,
Well,
they didn't
there
have.
might have been, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, because if you didn't know Spanish, I mean, being in a very predominantly strong Spanish background, how hard was that?
Uh, well, I mean, luckily we had people around that spoke English that could translate. Ultimately, the family, obviously the daughter of the family knew how to speak English, and we had a close connection because she was like my first line of fire to the factory,
Mm-hmm.
and she spoke enough English, and I started learning a little bit of Spanish, especially when it came to tobacco. So I'm really good with tobacco Spanish, but not so good with like baseball Spanish.
But it's all good, though.
Conversational Spanish is not my thing, but if we're talking about a cigar and tobacco, I know exactly what I'm looking for and exactly what to say in those terms.
And that is like really cool, especially being able to up and come and build yourself. Like you said, you were in it for 10 years prior and making a name for yourself. What were some of the struggles that you had on it? Was, or were there any struggles? Were there any walls, anything that you had to adversary ad, I can't.
Yeah, I honestly, the struggle was more, like when I was working behind a counter and selling cigars to people coming through the store that I was working at. They were just looking for a cigar, so it's like they had their opinion. I was asking them questions also at the same time. But when all of a sudden you have a kid with tattoos that has his own cigar brand in a predominantly Spanish, world, you know, I make old world cigars. That's what I love to do. I choose to make old world cigars. So when people were asking me about my brand, they're kind of questioning whether or not I knew anything about cigars. So that was one of the struggles. Um, that honestly, the biggest struggle was probably that just to kind of prove to people that we actually knew. I knew what I was talking about when it came to cigars, and I was looking for people just to give the brand a chance, to try it out and hope that they understand what we're doing with the tobacco and the product that we're making. I think early on, some of the the for lack of better words, the struggles that we had were also like a lot of people didn't know the family that I was working with, so they were kind of gun shy with them. They're like, "Oh, who's making it?" I would tell them, and they're like, "Well, we have never heard of them,"
Okay.
because they were new also. So it was a growing period for both companies, honestly, and luckily we just proved a lot of people wrong that second guessed, the product, and ultimately the product is the most important. And I mean, we could tell you we make the best cigars in the world, but we have to prove it. And luckily, a lot of times we were proving the naysayers, uh, not wrong, but we were proving to the naysayers that we had good product and that we knew what we were doing. So
Yeah, because I admire.
the skies have cleared, by the way. So,
Go
welcome
figure.
to Miami.
The cigar gods are like, yeah, I want to hear what he has to say about all this.
Well, I'll be honest, man. I haven't had a cigar since last week because of this cold I got from this trip to Europe, and it was nice to sit down and actually take my first puff.
And I'm glad you're doing it on here and all that. Again, it's a huge honor to have you on, because I know for myself, being a new brand owner and all that, and of course, it's funny, tattoos,
Yeah,
military side. But where you came from is where I was, and it's slowly coming about. And I appreciate that and respect that highly.
yeah. I
And
mean, I think everybody, anybody that gets into this business is going to go through a struggle and many struggles to get to eventually get to a point where people actually pay attention to them. It took a lot of years for people to even pay attention to the brand, and which is great though, because I always saw a positive to that, because I always saw that there was always a potential new customer that never heard of the product. I'm like, okay, there's one more person that I can maybe grab onto and maybe see if they want to at least give us a chance. So I don't see I call it a struggle. I don't see it really as a struggle. It's really just a challenge. It's you got to take risks in life, and you know you can't believe when people tell you that you're not doing it right. You just have to believe in yourself. I mean, people have always asked me, like, what's your best advice for a new company starting in the cigar business? I said, don't try to force it down people's throats. Like, just if you believe in it, eventually people will believe in it also. You can't, but you have to make sure you have good product.
yeah,
That's it.
foremost. And everything. I've smoked a lot of your cigars. I love the Tuxla, by the way. I mean, that's a really good. I love that cigar.
Thank you.
And it's
Thank you.
funny. I went. It was weird. I don't have that book of matches with me, but I have a book of matches. It's in a place, a smoke shop I went to not that long ago, because I go visit my son. He's a firefighter in Illinois, and they have your whole collection.
Oh, you probably had Up Down.
I forgot what it is. Monte Cristo.
Casa de Monte Cristo in
Yeah.
Overland Park or whatever. They're
Yes.
outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They're missing one out of your collection. I took pictures of it all. I was like, man, that's awesome. How did you even
Yeah,
do that?
they have a whole collection of the Monster series there. Um, they kind of do like this vintage room, I guess. You walk in the vintage room where they had all the boxes displayed.
Yes, sir.
That was a conversation between me and a couple friends at a cigar store in Gloucester, in Boston, called Gloucester Street Cigars. And my buddy Jose, who was one of the owners of Gloucester Street, kept on telling me I needed to do a theme cigar. And I had done a few limited editions. I started thinking about doing some theme cigars, but then he started talking about sneakers, and he was a big sneakerhead. I think he still is. And he pulled out a Frankenstein Nike. And as soon as he did that, I was like, monsters. That's an easy one. And that's kind of how the whole concept came up. Within like probably about, I don't know, an hour, I pretty much planned the whole release. Then it was the challenge of getting the cigar made. Obviously, I was working with a great factory, still the same factory since day one.
Wow.
But when people were visiting, like big people that we know in the industry, like tobacco growers and stuff, when they were visiting the factory, they would ask Pepin, like, "What's Pete working on now?" And he would show them one of the boxes, and it was like a coffin shaped box, and they're like, "What
Mhm.
is this kid crazy? Like, what's he doing?" They're like, "This kid's kind of nuts." So people were always excited to see what I was doing, but at the same time, they were like a coffin, like
Really?
like a monster coffin. Okay, let's see what happens with this one. And the first year, which was Frank, really didn't do much. It wasn't it wasn't a high demand thing, but like there was like this small, like for lack of better words, kind of cult following for the brand already. So those guys, those people, I can't say guys anymore, right? Those
Right.
people, those people actually kind of sought out the amount of boxes that we made, and I knew people that were getting 7, 8, 9 boxes for themselves. And ultimately, that first release, those people that bought 7, 8, 9 boxes were sitting on a gold mine because they were buying them for $169, and people were offering them like $2,000 for the box, for one box. So it ended up being a great investment for them. But it was that following year when we did the DRAC that people started going, okay, I got to get this. And it became like it slowly built into this brand of its own, to where if I couldn't sell one more Tatuaje, I could still make monsters all year and
Hmm.
have a fairly good business. Um, but it's for me, it's not about just one thing. I don't want to be the one trick pony. I want to
Right.
have a portfolio of good product.
It's kind of like how you said, it's kind of like how you brought music into it. It's like you don't want to have that just one song and that's it. That's all you're known for. Correct. So it's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
you've got to build
yeah.
it.
Who wants to be known for one song?
That
Um,
doesn't fly. I mean, come on. I mean, anybody
I
can,
mean,
anybody.
amazingly enough, there are people out there that have had a huge business off of one song, and they continue to play concerts throughout the United States and the world. Um, and everybody waits for that one song to play, and they probably don't know any other song the guy or the band plays, but they they wait for that one song. And these guys, I mean, look at a guy like Rick Astley. Remember that guy?
Oh, yes.
Uh,
Oh, yes. How do you not?
Huge, yeah, huge,
Huge,
right?
huge.
One song. I
One
can't tell you
song,
any other song. I mean, I'm sure he's got other songs, but I can't tell you what they are.
but it's fascinating. There are bands and there are ones that have that one song that'll do it. But in the cigar industry, I don't think that really flies because people want more. They want more interest. And how you've done it is amazing on different
Yeah,
steps.
I was lucky that before I started that series, I had already had 5 years under my belt. So people were already paying attention to the regular brand, and it wasn't like, okay, this is all we got from this company. And like that wasn't my first cigar, so they had already like seen some of the goodness that we were doing with the product. So that was just like an icing or the cherry on top.
Yeah,
And it's still the cherry on top, but I still want to have that Sunday without the cherry. You know what I mean?
absolutely. I get it. See, to me, that's a lot of fun. What would you say? What was out of your experience thus far? What would you say is the one cigar where you really had the most fun creating?
Well, I mean, obviously, the the first monster, Frank, was obviously a lot of fun because it was kind of what am I doing? How am I getting? How am I going to do this? And every year that we would do it, that's always fun to create because it is a fun project. I get to work on, different designs with the boxes. I get to work on, you know, making sure that the cigar represents the monster in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always a lot of fun. But honestly, every cigar and every new project we do is fun for us because they all mean something to us. We don't go into it like, oh, if we make 10,000, we're gonna sell 10,000. We make 10,000 because we want to make them for ourselves. If
Mm-hmm.
they don't sell, we can smoke 10,000. You know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah.
We never go into it going, oh, this is going to be fun because we're going to sell a bunch of them. I mean, like things like pork tenderloin were a lot of fun. Any project that we've done, any release, honestly, that we put together is always a lot of fun because there's always meaning behind it for us. And again, if we can't sell them, we end up having cigars to smoke, and that's ultimately the focus for us. Is like we don't make cigars to sell, we make cigars to smoke. If no one wants to buy them, we smoke them.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's awesome. All that everything is fun, and the way you do it, how you present it, how you market it, it's all fun. It's a blast.
Yeah,
But you stand behind it. When you put your name on something, it means something to you. It's of high quality. And I was going to ask is from where you began and how you saw the industry when you were coming in, how
yeah.
has it evolved, I should say?
Well, I mean, the industry as a whole has evolved a lot. I mean, now you see a lot more people that look like me. You see a lot more people with tattoos. You see a lot more edgy brands. There's still a lot of tradition, obviously, and that's one of my biggest focuses is tradition. Because I like to make old world cigars, not new world cigars. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to have the tradition that ties to everything. Um, Sometimes I feel like the industry has changed for the better, and then there's days where I'm like, you know, there's a lot of shit in this industry that shouldn't be happening, and I get depressed about, like I don't want I don't want this industry to change. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
want it to be a a project based off of family and tradition. I don't want it to be, a commodity. And luckily, there's a lot of great companies that are making cigars for that same purpose that I do, and it's really about it's really about history and tradition of making cigars. You're not going to recreate the wheel. Like
Right.
a cigar is made the same way that's always been made. You can get clever the way you blend, and you can get clever the way you package, but ultimately you're trying to make a good cigar that people are going to spend their money on, and you want to make sure that people are happy when they smoke it. You
And
don't
that's
want it to be a gimmicky industry. And I
no.
do make gimmicky product, but at the same time I don't want it to be. I want people to still respect the product and the cigar, um, regardless of what's on the packaging.
But you always that's the cool that's the awesome thing is it's quality. It's not
Yeah,
like it goes on any industry, any job, anybody thing that anybody does that puts out there. You can say you're putting on a front. Yeah, I can show you this is great, this is fantastic. But when you go to try it, you're just like, what the heck is this?
yeah,
Look
yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah.
And but again,
That's
you
with anything. That's with anything.
yeah,
I mean, like you could have the most, crazy marketed restaurant in the world, and you walk in, you have a piece of crap steak wrapped in gold foil. You know, who cares?
yeah. And let me tell you, you get aggravated, right? When you go into a nice place, you expect, hey, high quality. And then when you freaking take that bite, it's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, yeah.
It's frustrating.
I mean, I've been in enough restaurants over my life that I've gone to some places like, okay, I just overpaid for a show. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. I could have gotten a better meal at my local restaurant. So yeah, that it's got to be about quality and about care. like the guy who makes a steak at a small restaurant and he has 5 employees could blow away the guy that has 100 employees and a billboard on every block.
Absolutely. And that's where you keep the tradition alive. And a lot of people look up to you because there's younger generations that's coming in. You keep the tradition. You kind of like, I should say, tie it together from the
Well,
old
for
to the
me,
new.
it's the most important thing is that you have to respect the people that came before us. You have to respect even the people that have passed. I mean, some of my mentors in this business are long gone, but I still try to, pay homage to them and everything I do because I don't want to. I don't want, I don't want that tradition to disappear. It's super important that we kind of pay respect for those people that have moved on. And will I be remembered as someone in the industry that changed the industry? Maybe, but it's not really so important for me. It's really I want to make sure that the product that we're making is quality. My father-in-law, Pepin Garcia, he'll be that guy that people remember as someone who changed the industry.
Right.
Um, and I hope that people that never get to meet him when they come into the industry 20, 30 years from now, his name is still someone you talk about because he deserves it. You know what I mean? Like guys like
Absolutely.
Carlito Fuente, Carlos Fuente Sr., guys
Yes.
like Frankie Neza, those guys deserve the respect. And those guys are long gone. Jose Orlando Padron, you don't want to forget those people. So I'm hoping that, 20, 30 years from now, when I'm old and older, I guess I'm already old, but when I'm older and, or maybe I'm even gone and they start talking about cigars, they still look in the books and start looking up these old guys that were, here, way before them. So
100%. Again, it's a
that's
great
why that's
honor.
exactly why I made the documentary Hand Rolled.
I was gonna get to that. I mean, because I absolutely love that. And what was it like? And talking through the story and bringing everybody together like that. If you could walk us through a little bit.
Well, I mean, honestly, when we first started doing the project, Steve and Jesse, the directors and writers, they had a hard time getting in touch with people. A lot of people wouldn't answer their phone calls. Luckily, I have a lot of friends in the industry, and they heard that I was part of it. So they would call me and say, "Hey, I keep on getting phone calls from these guys. Is this legit?" I said, "No, yeah, it's legit. We're trying to put together a documentary about the industry that will educate people about the history of the industry and kind of put those faces to the brands and the get those masters out there so people can see where the history comes from." And luckily, those guys, you know, jumped on board with it and were
Right.
willing to sit down for interviews. I mean, quick story: George Padron had such a great interview with Steve and Jesse that he called them the next day and said, "Hey, I've convinced my dad to sit down for you guys." And that was a nice bonus to the film because that might be one of his last interviews.
Right. And I took that to heart because of the things that you were able to do and introduce and give people an opportunity. And not only just that, I mean, yes, we got to have a lot of the great people on there and all that. But as you said, you gave them a voice to
Yeah,
where when people and for free, I mean, you put it all out there to where people don't have to purchase. I want you to see this. I want you to understand what they went through, how it evolved, where it came from, the sacrifices that they made, the families did to now.
I mean, again, 20, 30 years down the road, a lot of us will be gone, but at least that timestamp is there. And I don't think it's a dated project. People will at least look at it. Hey, there's an old documentary about some of the great cigar makers that aren't around anymore. we should probably sit down and learn a little bit more about this industry before we jump into it.
Now, was there
And
any?
hopefully we'll do more of them. You know.
I was just. Are you guys going to do any more of them down the road and all that, like to keep up with the new times and add more?
Steve and Jesse did a episode on J.C. Newman to tell the history about J.C. Newman and the many generations that J.C. Newman has had making cigars. Their plan is to do more like individual episodes based on each, based on companies.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, doing a project like this costs a lot of money, and like it'd be cool to do like another like full scale documentary, but a full scale documentary is, you're talking about a 90-minute, full feature film with music and everything. It ends up being very costly, and their focus right now is to do the individual episodes to tell the stories of the individual companies.
That is like phenomenal. What about like books? Any books off of that? Because that would have been a great book to be able to put in cigar shops. Like, hey, you know what? Here's something that you could take a little bit of history with you and learn something from it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I never really thought about it. I mean, I have a bunch of cigar books. Like when I first got into the business, 30 years ago, and I was smoking cigars. Even before I got into working in the industry, I was smoking cigars and going to old bookstores and finding anything that had to do with tobacco. So I collected like a pretty wide array of tobacco books or cigar books that were around from way before my time. And I never really thought about it, but it might be kind of cool to put together a coffee table book based on the screenshots from the film.
Exactly. I mean, and put more stuff, you can add more and have it a series so people can actually, especially newer ones that are coming in and wanting to learn, especially in different ones where you have boutiques. Hey, you want to learn something? There you go.
Well, I mean, listen, I come from a different generation, I guess I'm Gen X, and like we looked at books, we looked at, we did all these things. We learned about computers when they were first made. We use a telephone with a cord on it. Like we've done everything. Unfortunately, the way technology works and the way the generations are coming up, you don't see a lot of people grabbing a book anymore. You see people, automatically getting on their phone and they'll. I mean, shit. I'm as guilty as anybody. I watch a lot of documentaries on my phone while I'm traveling. So it's all about what's there and what's on demand. It's coffee table books nowadays for me are like decorative pieces.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty to look at, but I don't open them as much as I used to when I was a kid.
It's not the same anymore.
Yeah.
Bring it, because now a lot of it where the books are, they're audio books where you get them right online and you can just listen to it. So, there's different varieties. Hey, you want to listen to it? You can go to this, like how you did. That's cool. At least for my generation, I absolutely loved it to be able to watch it. I watched it like freaking 5 times over. It doesn't get old.
Yeah, for me, it doesn't get old either. I mean, I've seen it probably 100 times myself. I watch it because, like for me, it's about the storytelling. And I hear these stories from some of these guys. I was just in Europe with a lot of these guys because we go to Germany every year for a trade show, and we run into, or obviously we're hanging out with all of our friends. Any person you saw in the documentary that's still alive was there, and just talking to some of them, I was like, I mean, I love that, that line that you said in the documentary. It's one of my favorite lines, that type of thing. So I still reminisce, even though it's 5 years old, it's actually 5 years old today. It was put on. Yeah, actually not 5 years old, not today. It's 5 years old, but it was 1 year today that we put it on YouTube for free. and in 1 year it got 227,000 views, which was kind of cool. But yeah, the film is 5 years old, but it's holding its 1 year anniversary on YouTube today.
That's phenomenal, because I know I hear a lot of people, they talk about it like, wow, that was like awesome to be able to hear a story like that. What you guys did was great, and all your adventures. How has the ride been for you?
Well, sorry, say that again.
How was the ride for you as far as up to now with everything that you've done?
I mean, the 20 years of doing the brand, it's been pretty pretty steady, pretty hectic. I mean, you get a lot of growing pains. It's not easy. Scaling is not always the easiest thing either. Like, just when you think you're about to get to a different level, you run out of inventory, and then you run out of money, and then you have to kind of recoup and keep on reinvesting. Um, I mean, we've been very fortunate and lucky that people have held the brand in good light for 20 years. If you look at my father family, who makes all of my products, their scale of growth has been phenomenal. Obviously, a few amazing ratings under their belt from Cigar Aficionado doesn't hurt, but you still have to be careful of how quick you grow, because you could run into issues with quality. And again, growing pains, everybody's going to have them, and when you're scaling quickly, you're going to run into issues. So you try to move through them with good faith, and hope that you get through relatively unscathed, and you try to do better the next time.
I mean, that's, again, I can't wait for the next ones to come out. And do you have any idea if you have anything coming down the pipeline, or
For the film or for cigars?
cigars?
Oh no, yeah, we always have stuff coming. I mean, we have stuff planned for the next 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of obviously limited batch stuff that we do every year. We try to do some limited batch stuff, but we continue making our regular production products every day of the week. But there are the occasional limited batch items that I like to throw into the mix, just to keep people's interest alive. One, but two, because I'm always playing, and I always like to try new things myself. Ultimately, again, we make new cigars because we want to try them first, and we're always experimenting with, like, how about if we put this wrapper on this cigar, and we realize, oh shit, that's really good. We should probably put that out because we love it. And ultimately, we're looking for the consumer base to be almost like a test panel for us, because we put out a lot of these limited editions in hopes that they like it as much as we do. And if they do like it as much as we do, and they want more, then maybe we'll consider bringing them out again. And so
Okay.
you see a lot of times where we have reduxes of things, like where we've done a limited batch twice or three times, because people really, really fell in love with them as much as we did.
That, man. So how do you actually, when you're going through a process, how do you go about coming up with a blend for yourself when you're doing this? That was always
Honestly, it's a lot of trial and error, because ultimately the blends that we don't like never get made.
right.
So it's constant. We go in with a basis. We're like, okay, we know this blend. Let's try taking the Ligero out and just using a Viso instead of Ligero, and let's put this wrapper on instead of that wrapper, and see what we come up with, because we're looking now for a different experience. We're looking for a different meal on the menu.
Right.
Like, you can't. People know us for making stronger cigars, but the reality is we make a lot of medium-bodied cigars that people don't pay attention to, because they expect us to make strong cigars. But for us, it's about making up a menu and having choices when we wake up in the morning, because I don't always want to smoke, you know, this particular cigar. If I was, with a gun to my head and they said you have to smoke only one, I could choose one for sure. But I want to wake up in the morning and go, I'm not in the mood for cereal this morning. I'm in the mood for, bacon and eggs. You know what I mean? Like you
Yep.
have to have those. It's about choices. So we're constantly making up different blends or different versions of blends so we have those choices. And when we fall in love with them, that's when we go, let's try to see if people like this also. But we have to love it first.
Yeah, those are interesting because I know I have had already when I told everybody that you were coming on, they were like, well, how's he do it? How does he get it into the consumer's hands to get to understand the feedback? So I have to ask that because I know a good friend of mine asked me, he's like, how does he do it? I got to know how he does it with as many freaking consumers.
You have to believe in yourself. You can't. I mean, the consumer part is the bonus to what you do. I mean, I love the people that follow the brand and respect the product that we put out. Um, but I need to be ultimately happy with everything we're doing because if I'm unhappy with it, I'm just, selling a false, bill of goods,
Mm-hmm.
I can't, yeah, I can't do that. You have to believe in the product. You have to, like this lighter, I like this lighter. It's a Fonseca lighter, by the way. My father, Fonseca lighter. I love this lighter. If I didn't like this lighter, I wouldn't use it. I would just throw it to the side, but it works every time. And I know that I could sell you that lighter because I believe in it. But if I thought this was like the biggest piece of shit lighter and I kept on having problems with it, I'd be like, yeah, hey, go out and buy this lighter. It's really good. No, I can't do that because I'm selling you, the Brooklyn Bridge.
I just want to make that clear so everybody, when I go to repost all this, so people can understand, hear it from you. That's like, hey, that quality, that experience is
Yeah,
utmost important.
not everybody's gonna, understand what we're looking for. That's why we have choices also.
Mm-hmm.
Not every cigar is for everybody, and some people just don't like Tatuaje, which I respect because everybody's got their own palate. But there is a case where they might like one of my other brands like Fausto, or they might like Cabai One. They might not like the original Tatuaje Brown label, but they love Cabai One. I'm okay with that because I'm trying to give people choices, but it starts with me first. Like starts with my choices, my getting up in the morning, wanting to have a different breakfast, wanting to have a different lunch every day. I mean, if we made pizza for every meal, I say this all the time. If we made pizza for every meal, it'd get pretty boring. Yeah, is it good? Everybody loves pizza, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you want to wake up and say, I want a burger. Like I don't want to eat pizza today. Um, I still love my pizza, but I can make a mean burger too. So it's the bonus is when people understand what we're doing and appreciate what we're doing. But the ultimate goal is to not, you know, make a cigar just to sell it because then it becomes a commodity, and that's not what this is about.
100%. Now, do you guys are you international all over the world, or generally located in the U.S.?
Well, I mean, the U.S. is obviously the biggest market.
Right?
Um, it's funny per capita though, Lebanon is the biggest market
Really?
of cigar smokers. Yeah, but not for our company, but per capita, Lebanon's the biggest consumers of cigars,
Hmm.
which is an very interesting stat. Um, but yeah, I I can't even count how many countries. That's why we were in Europe during this doing this trade show because we go to visit all of our international distributors and to meet retailers and consumers over there. Um, yeah, I mean, we've been very fortunate that people in other countries are willing to take a chance on our product too. and we've been very fortunate that the consumer base in those countries have started looking elsewhere instead of just looking at Cuban cigars,
Mm-hmm.
because Cuban cigars still rule the world when it comes to
Right.
international. But you're seeing a very quick pickup for domestic, or what we call New World cigars, because Habanos didn't do themselves a favor by raising their prices up drastically and sacrificing quality too. So that you're seeing a big turn in the consumer base looking for other options, and we've done fairly well overseas.
My hat's off to you. I wish you nothing but the utmost respect and success everywhere
Thank
that
you.
you're at. So how did you do over at the did you enjoy yourself at Las Vegas? Were you there? I didn't get an opportunity to go there.
Yeah, no, Vegas was good. Vegas was really good, actually. I mean, Vegas for us, we go there because it's like old home week for me. I get to see everybody I haven't seen all year. I try to stay out of the way of the guys that are, doing their job selling the product. I just want to hang out and have a drink with someone and smoke a cigar with someone, and kind of geek out on things that I'm working on and get my friends to try it. Like, hey, you got to try this new thing I'm working on. So Vegas for me it's always about getting together. It's not so much of a selling thing for us. Ultimately, we have to go there and sell product because
Right.
that's how we pay our bills. But I mean, that's how we pay for the booth and the hotel rooms and all that other stuff that goes into being there. But we try to have a good time while we're there, and hang out with some friends that we haven't been able to see, and that could a lot of friends from other cigar companies. Because I mean, if you look at the majority of the industry, a lot of us get along pretty well. I
For a
mean,
majority, I'd say
we're
I'm
we're
learning.
all we're all like, I always equate it to like we're all like frat brothers. I hate to use just brothers in the sense because there's a lot of sisters of the leaf, but
Yes.
let's say fraternities and sororities as a whole.
Right on.
I'm going to use the word fraternity as a whole for both sororities and fraternities. When you think about that, we're all like in the same fraternity,
Mm-hmm.
but we all want to outdo each other. So ultimately, we're all brothers and sisters, but we also have a challenge to beat that other guy. I mean, if you look at the classic sorority and fraternity, there's always like the guy that's the main guy or the main girl that are in those fraternities and sororities, and there's always like that new freshman that comes in that wants to kind of outdo the elder statesman. So I don't know. I think people look from the outside a lot of times think, oh man, you guys must be competitors. Like, we are, but I mean, shit. I just spent 3 days in Spain with Rocky Patel and Carlito Fuente and Arthur Kemper from Perdomo and Jeremiah Merifeld. I mean, the Garcias. Obviously, we were all together, just shooting the shit, talking about cigars, smoking a lot of cigars, eating really good food, drinking wine, drinking whiskey. I mean, if people saw that, it'd be like, aren't you guys supposed to be competitors? Aren't you guys supposed to be like not like each other? I'm like, no, this is family.
But wouldn't you say it's kind of like every industry? But the biggest thing is I notice is like, okay, me, I'm a huge sports guy.
Mm-hmm.
Love sports, baseball, football, hockey. I love it. Don't get me on golf because that's hard for me. I live on a golf course, but it's still difficult for me to get into it. But everybody's family to a certain point.
Yeah.
But the challenges of what everybody brings to the table. Friendly competition is welcomed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody keeps that competitive edge because it keeps you sharp. It keeps you on your toes. Where it's like,
Absolutely.
oh wow, I want to keep gradually building. It's like, okay, this person came out that. Let me see. But when you start attacking people and breaking it down, like for me, that's when I start having a problem. That's what I'm noticing on certain areas, and that's why I wanted to ask you. As
Yeah,
being
there's
there,
always going to be. I'll give you a great line. Alan Rubin, who is a good friend of mine, and I know his sons pretty well. Which is interesting because his sons have always been fans of what I do, even though their dad owned a cigar company. Alan Rubin told me one day, he goes, "The reality, Pete, is sometimes some kids just don't play well in the sandbox." And I thought that was so on point that's what we are. We're all a bunch of kids, honestly, that just like to play. And occasionally you're going to get one guy that comes in or one girl that comes in that just doesn't want to play well in the sandbox. And to me, that made so much sense. The simplest analogy like makes so much sense to me.
But hey, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? You can't have it. It's an imperfect world. Because what bottom line is, me, you, I have a great opportunity to talk to you. It's like you're one of my freaking idols. I love it. I'm excited.
Well,
but
you said that if it were easy, everybody would do it. There really is no entry, like price of entry to get in the cigar business. Anybody can really do it, but you have to come in with good intentions. You have to come in for the right reasons. You can't come in thinking that you're going to change the industry and that you're going to do everything better than everybody else because you know more than the guys that have been around for 100 years. You just can't. So I choose to stay away from guys like that or people like that because it just a lot of times it stresses my head. And I start overthinking shit, and the older I get, the more I try to ignore the bullshit. And
thank you.
It's hard. It's sometimes hard not to ignore it, but you want to kind of put on your earmuffs and fade out the noise.
And that's what I want to ask you is how do you handle it being up there and all that, those adversity and my God, I can't even say it. The challenges. My God.
Yeah, I look at things, maybe new people coming in, and if I see that they're in there if I see that they're in the industry for the right reason, that's when I'll make sure I take time to have a conversation with them. But if I see that they're in it for the wrong reason, I just try to avoid them. It's better just to kind of, put blinders on sometimes.
So with that being said, how can we do better? Because I know you have the older families, you have the ones that are right there, like Tatuaje, Drew Estate, those guys. Then you have the smaller boutiques, one very new like myself coming up. How can the older ones bring up the newer ones?
So I think it's really about, positivity and being willing to ask questions. A lot of times people come in, they think they know better than everybody else. Like I said before, the people come in, they think they know better than everybody else. And they believe like, I don't need to ask any questions. Why do I need to ask questions from this old dude? But the reality is we have, a lot of the people that came before me, they had a lot of wisdom, and I took the time to ask some questions because, sometimes even dumb questions, because I still wanted to hear their honest answers. And I'm still friends with a lot of these people because they took the time to teach someone like me who was wanting to learn. I didn't come into it thinking I knew better than everybody else. Do I know a lot about cigars? Yeah. Do I know a lot about the industry? Absolutely. But I still like to sit down and talk to the people that came before me because they ultimately know more than I do.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to ask for myself.
Yeah.
Becoming, getting into the industry, learning it. And I'll say it on this. I don't know shit, but I do know my own palate.
Yeah.
That I enjoy from my old experiences and stuff like that. So I'm learning. I'm always gonna learn and eager to learn because I don't know everything. Believe that
you have to just take the time and be willing to learn every step of the way. And even when, like I always say, don't believe your own hype. Because even the moment that I started thinking that we were doing really well, we weren't really. And it's not good to believe your own hype, because ultimately you'll fall flat on your face. Keep on asking questions and keep on being willing to learn. Don't believe in the product that you're putting together, but be willing to be part of the community and not ignore the community. Don't come into this industry to make a quick buck. Be
Right.
part of the industry and support the industry. Don't come in here just to take.
I think that's great advice and all that, because that's all I like. I was a union electrician for over 20 years, so blue collar worker, Navy, military. It's always in my blood. It's like kind of being like an apprentice,
Yeah.
even
Oh
though
no,
I'm
like people call me a master blender sometimes, and I'm like, nah, listen, I'll never be a master. Like never. I will always be a student of this industry, and I'm learning new things every day. And I'm learning from the best people in this industry, and I try to take every piece of knowledge and pass it on as much as possible. But there
man,
are some people that just don't want to learn. You know,
and
there are some people that just believe that they do everything better than everybody else, and they're not willing to have that conversation or ask a dumb question.
hell, everything. A lot of questions I ask, sometimes I think are stupid questions, but they're valid questions. But I was always taught, hey, the only stupid question is the one you never asked, because what you ask might answer for somebody else.
Yeah,
Sometimes people don't have, and I've noticed for myself, sometimes it's getting that opportunity. How do you connect? How do you network? When you come in here and all that, and learning how to network with different brand owners and to get out there.
to network, man. You just go up and ask questions. I mean, honestly, get in the room and just be part of it. Like, don't try to force your way in, but at the same time, don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. Don't be afraid to go up to the biggest guy in the room and say, "Hey, I would really love your advice on this." I mean, shit. Took me getting electrocuted to go up to a real electrician. You know,
Hey, I
not not
understand that.
not really electrocuted, but enough to where I was like, okay, maybe I should actually ask a real electrician how to do this.
Yeah, because that's how I was taught. Again, our same age and all that. I was taught by old school people. You respected them and you learned from them. But the way I learned was different. How they learn today. Today,
Yeah,
you can't be that mean. Hey, I had tools that were thrown at me because it was to save because it was either to save my. And what I learned was yeah, I had to learn the hard way. I was upset. Yeah, I got hurt. But at the same token, when they told me at the end, I got it and I understand it now. It was about,
yeah,
it's not about because I threw it because I'm being mean to you. I did that because either A, to keep you safe, or you were going to kill somebody else. And it can
yeah,
go in the same motto with anything else.
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I mean, again, just just you see a bunch of guys hanging out, walk up to the group and see if you can just you know be part of the conversation. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, it's not easy. You feel kind of nervous and you feel kind of like unsure about meeting these people that seem like at a different level, but you have to just take the time to have the conversation. You know, hopefully people learn from some of my mistakes in this industry, and hopefully some people take some of my advice, and I hope I'm a positive influence and not a negative influence.
Well, I'll tell you one thing for my sake, you're definitely a positive influence.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Because I do a lot of different things, and just to know everybody, please follow Pete Johnson, Tatuaje Cigars. It was an honor and privilege to even have him on my show and all that, and for you to take the time. But again, I would love to be like an apprentice, a protege, so to speak, to learn.
Yeah.
Because I follow you as like, man, I want to know how he does it because I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, again,
Respect the
it all
art.
goes for me. It all goes to the personal part of it, the personal palate, and then ultimately, I work with a great factory that I count on to sew up, everything I do, and I'm very lucky that I have been working with this same family for 20 years, and they kind of understand where I'm at in my business. They understand what I'm going for. They have their own style. I have my own style, but I always listen to Pepin because I want to learn from them every day.
Well,
So it's necessary that you take the time just to listen to people, and maybe when I'm 70 and young guys come up to me at the trade show, I'm going to take a lot of time to have a conversation, and hopefully they get something out of it. Now anybody can approach me and talk to me about anything. I love conversations. I hate getting up in front of people and doing a speech, but I love one-on-one conversations.
I think that again, what you do is, like I said, it's personable when you have a conversation. I
Yeah.
know a nonprofit 501c organization that I do also because I'm with, do a lot of military charity and all that because that's what it's about. It's not just a passion of cigars, it's a passion about giving back to the community and helping others. Because to be perfectly honest, I suffer from mental health issues. And this cigar is like my therapy. It really is.
And here come the
The
the,
rain.
the, the skies have just the Kraken came back in. So it's gonna get really loud here. Yeah, yeah, it's not easy, man, and it takes time to build up, you know, the respect from other people. Like it takes time for people to kind of recognize like that guy's a good dude. I like having conversations with him. We've all done things in our lives that we probably don't don't people will never understand, but we try to make best with what we do in the future with ourselves and try to be better at what we're better at ourselves in general.
Absolutely. Well, again, Pete, I want to say thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
It was an honor and privilege. Hopefully, I can have more conversations with you on and off as same well. And I have actually an upcoming golf charity event
Mm-hmm.
in June and all that. I know it's a golf charity event. I suck at it, but again, hosting it to where hopefully I'm bringing other cigar companies to bring them out because I am affiliated with Folds of Honor, which is really how you connect with the military.
Mm-hmm.
They give scholarships back, and also John Daly, the PGA Golf Pro, and Major Ed
Oh yeah,
Heart and Foundation. I'm affiliated with them, so it
yeah. I
goes.
know John's a big supporter of the military. I don't
Yeah,
know him personally, but I see a lot of stuff on him. Um, does he smoke a lot of cigars though? I'm not really sure, but
not
I don't
really, but he
know.
has his
Yeah,
own cigars. He don't really smoke cigars,
there you
and
go.
he's hilarious. But I'm going to get him out. I know Major Ed, he's coming out. John Daly was more likely will come out, and a lot of great things. So I would love. It would actually be an honor to have Tatuaje there as well.
Well, I
For
can tell you, I
support.
can't make any promises now because
Right.
we don't. As far as scheduling goes for anything, we don't plan too far ahead for a lot of that stuff because things come up constantly. Like
Right.
even today with this podcast, like I told you when I got on, I wasn't really feeling well because I'm getting over a bad cold. But like I was taking a nap before I actually got on with you because I needed like a little bit of rest before I got on because I was falling asleep. Um, but yeah, we're constantly supporting different charities and different state organizations. We do a lot of state organizational things where where we try to support the different state organizations to help them fight tobacco taxes. That's a big thing for me. Obviously, the anti-regulation. We're not, we're trying to make sure that obviously I'm a big part of the CRA, the Cigar Rights of America. And our focus is to deal with, federal legislation and make sure that we don't get, obviously we had a big win with the FDA situation. But when it comes to the PCA, which is the organization that takes care of the retailers, we try to support them as much as possible to help the state organizations that deal with local legislation. So we're obviously constantly doing things with that, but when it comes to events, we're kind of like, maybe 1 or 2 months out, only because there's constant change in what we're doing. And now with the shift of the trade show coming up next year,
for March,
the summertime kind of opens us up to actually take a little bit of a break.
Right.
Because normally during the summertime, we're always scrambling to try to get everything ready for the trade show. And now we're having a trade show early next year, which actually will help us kind of decompress a little bit during the summer when it's always really hectic for us. So
hey,
we'll
like
see.
I said, totally understand it, but it would be an honor again. Hey, get John Daly. If anything, come out, smoke cigars, drink great bourbon, spirits, all kinds of fun things.
Very cool.
It'd be awesome. But thank you again. And also check out the foundation, because I have 501c that it helps out veterans, mental health, homelessness, our first responders. And that's
very cool.
Everywhere. It's not just my state trying to help everybody. But I'm going to get on the CRA to try to help that too, because need to help fight it in Indiana as well.
Yeah. I don't know if Indiana has a state association, but they're always running into issues with local and state taxes and stuff. So anytime you see something come up in your state, just make sure your voice is heard. Gotcha. That's really important. And the PCA is obviously really good with the state stuff. So keep on following what the PCA is doing. The Premium Cigar Association, they're really on top of the state legislation.
Again, I want to say thank you to your families and all the other families for the big win, for fighting for us. That it means a lot, even though it's not talked about a lot. I know it's not, and it should be, because that's a huge win.
Yeah, again, I go back to that whole thing about when you get in this industry, you try to support the industry as a whole, support the community. Don't come in just to make a quick buck. Don't come in to try to take from the industry. Be part of it, support it. So I always say, like, if you ever get to a point where your company's doing really well, do your best to try to chip in and help along with the other stuff that we're doing behind the scenes to fight for our rights to make cigars and obviously smoke them. So
definitely will do, brother. Anyway, hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Enjoy a little bit of time.
It's hot and sticky here in Miami, so it's good that I'm actually sweating a little bit of this cold out of me.
And that's good. You know what? And welcome back. Welcome home.
Thank you.
Safe
travels.
No
place like home.
There never is. But anyway, get some rest. Enjoy your time off. And again, thank you so much. And keep on with the freaking great cigars.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Talk to you later, my friend.
Thank you, man. Take care of yourself.
God bless.
Peace.
Well, you have it, everybody. Right there. Pete Johnson, Tatuaje Cigars. Go follow him. Go watch the movie. Everything this man has done, it's been an honor and a privilege because he stands for something. He's gone through it all. With that being said, have a good night. Be safe. Stay smoky. Later.